Welcome to episode number 3 of the Castbar. We're going to help you get prepared to take your first steps into the raid Highmaul that's opening tomorrow. Go into a little bit more of an in-depth discussion on how your garrison resources are treating you. Also, we got our first piece of listener mail to discuss, and we're going to review a 5-man dungeon that is currently threatening the safety of Stormwind. Thank you, and enjoy. Welcome to episode number 3 of the Castbar, a World of Warcraft podcast channeling your content with absolutely no interrupts. As always, with me I have Evan.
Yeah, glad to be here.
And Florian.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good. So, Thanksgiving, Black Friday, did you guys have a good time?
Had a good time. A couple days away from WoW. Got to prepare my garrison and let it run on autopilot, and that went pretty smooth. It was really nice coming back to that full garrison loot chest.
And how about you, Florian? What'd you do?
Just had a nice quiet time off. I never get enough quiet time around here, so it's always nice when we have a proper holiday.
I personally, with Black Friday stores opening at like 6, some of them as early as 4 and 5, I had Thanksgiving off. I went and had some dinner with the family, and then after that we got ready and we went out and went shopping.
Jeez, that's on Thursday night, you mean?
Right, yeah, Thanksgiving night. The stores were opening at like 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. depending on the store. It's definitely taking over the day now. But on one hand, I was like, man, that seems really early. But on the other hand, I was really nice because I was done shopping at like 1 a.m. Instead of starting at, 11 is when you would get in line and then getting home at like 8 a.m.
Right, how does that compare to the shopping day after everybody receives their oil checks there in Alaska?
So if you don't know, I live in Alaska, and once a year we get a little check from the state that is basically our share of the royalties for living here for all the oil and stuff. It's called the Permanent Fund Dividend. And every year the amount is different. It's based on how much money we make, and it always lands sometime in October. And the day that everyone gets their checks is normally worse than Black Friday because out of nowhere they just got this sum of money which ranges anywhere from $700 to $1,800 depending on how good of a year it was. And then everyone goes out and freaks out and buys everything they possibly can. And that is a day that I never go anywhere.
But you'll contend with the Black Friday shoppers, which is a little surprising.
Well, it's not quite the same. I mean, because people that go Black Friday shopping, I presume, have money to go Black Friday shopping, so they were planning on it. Whereas when PFDs drop, everybody has money, instead of just the people that were preparing to go spend money.
Say no more, say no more. Well, I just want to know if there are special deals on the Permanent Fund day.
A lot of people will have sales and stuff like that. The one you hear the most of is like car lots and stuff. You can get a car for no money down because they're just going to take your PFD, so you're technically down.
Interesting.
But also, when I go Black Friday shopping, I'm very relaxed about it. I mean, if you're not trying to get one of the like $100 40-inch TVs, you don't really have a reason to run. I mean, you just walk in the door and just shop around like you're a normal person instead of having to throw elbows to get one of the 20 TVs.
Yeah, I still have never been to a doorbuster in my life. Maybe one day I'll find a good reason to do it.
I haven't found one yet. On a slightly other topic, my other half was laughing at me hilariously for like 20 minutes today. So I was born in Colorado and I spent 14 years growing up in Oklahoma. Now, there's a lot of very southern accents in Oklahoma, and I don't feel as though I have that thick or strong of one that shows out. But apparently there's a word that I said earlier that she just couldn't stop laughing because I had the strongest southern drawl that she had ever heard come out of my mouth. And that word is pizza.
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 I don't know. That's more like a Texas.
Well, that's southern.
I don't know.
I mean, it's close, but she wouldn't stop laughing because we're playing a game with the kid, and it made me say pizza, and then she was like, wait, say it again? Pizza.
That might sound southern to somebody from Alaska, but I grew up in Southern Virginia.
So you're like, yeah, that's just normal words.
No, it sounds Texas to me. I think you're doing Southwest. It's a difference when you're over here. Although we got 6 different kinds of southern over here in the southeastern United States, I think.
Fair enough. But we do have a little bit of news today, so let's move into that. Hello, and today in the news, there's not a whole lot of news happening besides the fact that the raids are opening tomorrow, and the only thing you're going to be able to do tomorrow is normal and heroic Highmaul. So that'll be your 10 to 30 man group on normal or heroic difficulty, however you want to spread that around. We're just going to go over a little bit of the things that you might want to do to prepare for that. The first thing that I would like to point out to everybody is flasks. If you didn't already buy them, it's gonna hurt, because people were commenting that flasks were very inexpensive, but that's because there weren't any raiding going on. But there was already flasks that were being sold for 150 gold a piece, and now they're going to be bought in excess. So, my little small piece of advice right now is to just go get some flasks if you can, or ask somebody to make some, because they're going to be getting very expensive very soon.
Right, and another point of advice is that I don't think it's ever been easier to cook proper food. So if you've never been into cooking, if you've always bought all your stat food on the auction house, now might be a good time to try to start cooking that stuff yourself. I think fishing is really easy. Farming Nagran for meat is really easy, and you can learn recipes just by tasting food, and by cooking food you'll learn recipes automatically. I think it's a pretty fun system and pretty easy to get into.
Yeah, that's very true. I didn't even realize that was how it worked, because I'm not a big cooker, a big chef. But I got a piece of meat from something, and it was like, you could learn how to cook it if you ate it. I was like, really? That's awesome.
Because it's, we're all psychic in Draenor somehow. We're all aficionados.
We've eaten so many things, and especially coming from Pandaria, where food is the second most important thing, right next to beer, that we are such connoisseurs of food now that, like the Pandaren, we can just taste it and tell you what's in it and how to make it.
I think the secret is probably that there are no ingredients in the food except for the meat. We're like, ooh, this is chicken, it looks roasted. I'll bet I roast chicken and that's how I make it.
And for those of you that don't have raid groups, like myself, LFR will be opening 1 week from tomorrow. And for those of you who are the hardcore people ready to go ham on the raid's face, Mythic raids will also open in 1 week. Florian, do you have anything that you would like to add to give people a little bit of heads up of what to expect?
The only thing to add, really, preparation-wise, for the raids is, and this goes on food also, if you know someone who has a stable in their garrison, the stable enables you to produce a feast that gives a very strong buff to your highest secondary stat. And it's actually looking like a very powerful feast right now. So I would recommend finding someone who has a stables, if you don't have one yourself, and trying to recruit them into your raid group if you can. Because that's going to be quite strong, especially with secondary stats being as important as they are now.
Do you know what the number of the buff that it gives is? What the actual amount is?
Well, I know that the regular food you can make is 75, and then the advanced food you can make is 100. So okay. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 100, but it might be more.
Okay, because the herb garden, which everyone gets at level 3, the tree around it is sprinkled with food that gives a 75 buff to a different stat depending on which fruit it is.
Yeah, 75 seems to be the level that you get for the most accessible foods.
And flasks on the same thing also have this 2-tier system. You can buy and make regular flasks, which give 200 in a main stat, or you can buy the greater flasks, which give 250 in a main stat. But just be ready. Raids are going to open up. I do advise everyone that tomorrow is the first day of the raid. You're probably going to have a login queue if you're on a high population server. I'm not 100% sure on why, but everyone wants to raid on Tuesday. That is the most popular day for raiding, especially Tuesday evening. So, after everyone gets off work. So if you are able to, I would try and log on earlier rather than later. Don't try and log on 10 minutes before raid, because if you're on a server like Stormwind or Illidan, or maybe even, like me on Proudmoore, you might face a queue time because of how many people are going to be trying to log on to raid. We did get this huge influx of players, and a lot of them are probably going to want to at least try to raid, especially with how flexible raiding is now. You don't have to have exactly 10 or exactly 25. So it is more flexible, it is more accessible, so hopefully in that, more people are going to be able to raid. And I just expect a large number of people to be online tomorrow. So just get your food now, get your flasks now, get online early, get after it, and then I wish you all the best of luck with raiding, because I love it, I miss it, I will be hopefully getting into it very shortly. But for the time being, I will be sitting on the sidelines cheering you on with blood-soaked pom-poms.
Right, and that's a good idea, actually. I actually double-checked on Wowhead. We've got the Savage Feast that comes from a level 2 barn, not a stables, and that will provide 100 to your highest secondary stat for 1 hour. So we're right, yeah.
Specifically your highest?
Specifically your highest. Now, if you get the advanced food from the cooking skill, then you can eat the food that raises a select skill. So maybe this is going to be more of an end game food where you've already been able to gear yourself a little bit towards the stats you're aiming for. If you eat this Savage Feast at this point in the game, maybe you're going to get gimped with one of your stats that happens to be the highest, but not necessarily one that's best for your DPS, and you're better off trying to find the cooking recipe that's best for you.
Which would probably be what I'm with not being able to reforge, and with gems being a lot rarer, I often foresee my highest secondary stat not being necessarily the one that I want, or just because depending on your class, you have two stats that aren't your main stat that you'd really like as much of as you can get, and you might just see it more beneficial to get the one you have a little bit less of. But I mean, right. For just big groups, a big feast, I guess that works. I mean, it'd be really difficult to let you choose.
Much better than nothing, and all the secondary stats have a little bit of value at least. But some of our listeners might not know what stat is best for their class. Of course, you can go to a bunch of different WoW fan sites, but a good way to get a general idea is to look at your ability panel, look at your passives, and everybody has at least one attuned stat where you get a 5% bonus to that stat. And I'm not talking about giving everybody in your party or raid a 5% bonus to haste, for example, if you're elemental shaman. I forget who exactly provides what, but everybody should have, and every spec should be different, a self buff that only increases your, for example, versatility or multi-strike, and that's a pretty good indicator that Blizzard's built into every class system that lets you know which you should kind of aim for a really good high throughput stat for you.
Right, and it not only does it give you a flat 5%, it also, I believe, all of them increase the amount you get of that from items. So it'll give you 5% flat, and then it'll also give you you get a bonus 5% from everything that gives that particular stat.
That's right. That's kind of what I meant. But I guess it's different from, for example, the critical strike aura that feral druids give. It's a flat 5%. It doesn't increase. I don't know, actually. That's a weird kind of math question. If I have 20% crit from all my gear and my base crit, and then I join a feral druids party, it just increases 25. It doesn't give me 5% more of the 20, which would be 4.
Well, my Shadow Priest has Mastermind. You gain 5% more of the haste stat from all sources.
Right.
This seems worded very strangely, but that's what it says. And then, of course, Mind Quickening is one of my little party buffs, but that's not specifically the one that's telling me what I should get. And it's also not telling you this is what you have to have. Just based on the way that they've looked at the classes and stuff, that's what they recommend.
So I would say look for the ability in your spellbook that has the wording from all sources, and that should be your attuned stat. If all else fails and you're at a complete loss, maybe try to eat food that gives you that, and it'll have a little bit more bang for your buck there.
Or, you can do whatever you want, however you want. I mean, if you're not raiding in this hop guild and not trying to get world first, there's a lot of different ways you can play a whole bunch of different classes. So go with whatever you like. I've never fully been the person that says if you don't do it this way, you are wrong and you don't belong here. I mean, the days of vanilla and Burning Crusade of where you had to have the specific cookie cutter trees to make your class work are completely over.
Well, I had one more point about this week. We have Normal and Heroic opening this week. LFR doesn't open until next week, so I'm going to put a little buyer beware out there. People who are trying to join pug groups, the normal difficulty is going to be higher than the looking for raid difficulty, and there are going to be a lot of LFR caliber players out there that are trying to join these pugs to get the first look at the first gear. It might be it might be a little bit of a I don't know a polite way to call it, but it might be a frustrating time there in the dungeons if you're joining pugs with these people who might be better suited to LFR.
That's a risk you take, both being the pug and also grabbing the pug. So, but luckily, I mean, you are able to fluctuate the raid size, so people can work it however they need to. But the all pug groups are generally very rough, especially at the beginning of a raid, when it's really hit or miss on if anyone knows anything about the fight at all. So
right.
If you're going to pug, as Evan said, prepare to probably walk in and die quickly. He didn't say that, but that's what he was implying.
I would suggest if you're going to run the pug tomorrow and you don't have very many friends, or you have a guild, but you have maybe a small group of core players, you're going to fill out your raid with the group finder. Start big. Try to get general concepts down, see if the fight isn't easy, and then whittle down the players who aren't pulling their weight, whittle down the players who can't communicate, who won't get on Ventrilo if you have a server, or are using a public Ventrilo or a Mumble server. Whittle down the players who don't seem to know their class, only playing healer because it gets a group faster, and then try to end up with a group of 10 or 12 people that seems to know what they're doing, and hopefully you can get a kill that way. I think it might be a little bit frustrating if you try to run with 12, lose 6, pick up another 6, try to run again. You're going to waste a lot of time. Start big, I'd say. You can go up to 30.
It's going to be painful either way. That is a very legitimate way to do it, but that's going to eat up so much time. So we'll just do whatever you think feels best. Remember, you only need 10. That's all you have to have. So if you have 10 and you're missing a tank, pug a tank and just hope that the tank isn't terrible.
And good luck.
Moving on. We have our final, what I believe will be the final follow-up on the Reddit issue, scandal, conbacle, whatever we're calling it. So our WoW has come under new management, and they are taking control of things. Our WoW seems to be put back together fairly decently. And they've been putting out a decent number of sticky posts, about one a week, of things that they're going to do. Have you guys seen those sticky posts as of right now?
I have seen some of them. I think things are headed in a good direction, at least in general.
Well, our WoW for the longest time was very crazy, and then we got to see it in its full craziness when the mods quit. But they put up a recent sticky post that says that they're going to start restructuring their rules to try and make it like some of the more, I guess, civilized subreddits. And that they're, for a spell, they didn't necessarily say, I think they said for a week, a month, maybe a month, I think, they were going to try out not allowing people to post images because there's just so much image spam in the feed.
Right, yeah, and actually this is a quality of life improvement for me personally. Content quality aside, a lot of those images are really funny and really cool, and I like looking at the transmog, etc. I'm not bashing images in total. I'm just saying that my primary work browsing method isn't conducive to images because I don't have a very strong cell phone signal at work. I usually rely on text posts, of which there are very few during prime time during the day on the WoW subreddit. So if we switch to entirely text post, I'm jumping for joy.
Right, and they were also having a problem with, like, the rules for images were pretty loosely defined. I mean, there were some things that they were just openly not able to post, like loot posts were all saved for the Thursday loot thread, stuff like that. But so many of those still got through, and at the same time, I mean, the World Boss Pound Fist is open now, so you can get the Gronling mount, and there was, like, just dozens upon dozens of posts of, look at this group of 300 people waiting to kill a world boss. And then here's what I drew with the starter quest, little gunpowder quest, and there's so much. It's not necessarily spam, but it's just not really anything that's beneficial to the subreddit. I mean, some pictures are really cool, but there's some of them that are just like, why would you post that?
And then you have Blazing Wings. Look at me, my Blazing Wings on the Feral Cat. Look at how they're weird. Everybody look at the Dark Portal. Look how many people are swarmed around it right before Draenor release. I mean, these things are ubiquitous. Every single week there's a new, post of the week that everybody has to try to recreate. So why would you put a gap on that? It's not like we were going to be seeing Pound Fist queues for the rest of, the expansion. I mean, it would have died out and something else would have cropped up. I think people just don't like these things in general, these kind of viral posts that people keep replicating.
I can sky mirror a tree, ha.
Exactly.
Check it out, I can sky mirror the dude that sky mirrored. Oh, sorry, Florian, go ahead.
Well, the problem isn't that they're posting pictures, it's that the pictures aren't any discussion-worthy content. I mean, Reddit is, at its core, a discussion forum. And a lot of people, when they post a picture, they will just post a picture, post a title saying, look at what I did, look at me wearing this cool hat, and that'll be it. Like, they don't write anything about it. They have no discussion points to bring up. And the way it's set up now, they can still post pictures. But if they want to post a picture, they're going to have to post it in a self-post, and they're actually going to have something to say about the picture. Actually bring up some kind of point for discussion. So I think that's going to help to put images where they need to be. They need to be something that helps provoke discussion and that improve the quality of the discussion forum. Not so much just little memes that are being thrown around to kill some time and try to garner a few upvotes.
Okay, so that very last thing you said, garner a few upvotes. Now, I use Reddit a lot, but I know that there's a lot of things about it that I don't know. Now, there's a lot of people that have been calling these people that just post, things that are popular at the time to try and get, a few upvotes on a picture or whatever. They've been calling them, karma junkies, karma, whatever, anything like that. What benefit is there to getting a big pile of karma?
Yeah, it's just the natural human instinct to try to make a small number bigger. It's your personal score. I mean, scores, like a score of a game, you try to make the score go up. It's just, makes you feel good inside. That dopamine rush when you put a post down and come back 20 minutes later and you got a couple upvotes.
I suppose
I really think that's all it is. Yeah, I mean, I put a picture of a really gross growth coming out of my leg on our WTF and got 3,000 upvotes front page. I mean, that was a rush. That was a great night just reading all the comments. I like the popularity, even if it's ephemeral. And I think a lot of people have maybe a similar story or a comment that was really popular of theirs. It just makes you feel good inside. You feel part of the community, like you're an actual contributor. I think everybody wants that contribution high.
I suppose that's fair.
But yeah, on Florian's side, I mean, a lot of these it was starting to get really kind of clickbaity. Like I'm looking at a thumbnail. It's a screenshot of somebody's entire interface. They didn't even crop it down to the part that they were referencing, and then its title would be something like, "Can't believe this happened to me again," or "So lucky, I can't believe it." And you're like clicking on the thing and searching around, like what are they even talking about? It's just a waste of time, Let's have some real discussion. Let's have some real content. And I think people asking advice about garrisons, about their class, posting galleries of photos, or even just posting the same picture but with a little bit of a thought besides just a title, will improve the quality. And we'll see what happens in the long run with the experiment.
Definitely. And speaking of advice on garrisons, we have a little bit, we're going to zoom in on a closer look of garrison resources themselves. Welcome to A Closer Look. A Closer Look is a small section that we do where we get down to the nitty-gritty of something in Warcraft. It could be an advice column. It can be just, whatever it needs to be. It could be something about, how does this work? Can you talk about this? What's your advice on this? A little bit of a more in-depth discussion about something that might not be game-breaking or news or anything like that. And today we're going to talk about garrison resources. Garrison resources are everything really that works in your garrison for you. You use them to build things, you use them to send your followers out on missions, and I've had multiple reports of people having a ton, people not having enough, people not having anywhere near enough, people going, yeah, I felt pretty good about where it is, and just what's enough, what's not enough, how much you need, where to get more, what you're doing right, what you're maybe doing wrong. Have you guys had any issues like this so far of anything like that yet in your garrisons? Florian?
Well, in my garrison, there is a constant lack of resources. And I think the disparity between people who have a ton of resources and people who don't really comes down to their gameplay style. For example, I do a lot of follower missions. And when I say a lot of follower missions, I mean every single one. No matter whether or not it would actually benefit me. If I've got an epic level 100 follower who can't level up, I will send them out on a mission. I will only get them 100 XP. Because every mission you send a guy out on, they have a chance to come back with a salvage crate. Salvage crates have a chance to contain upgrades for your followers. You get your followers item level higher, they can go on raid missions and get you raid gear, which is one of the main things everyone wants in WoW. So I've been focusing almost totally on building up my followers, and I've kind of neglected a lot of my garrison buildings. But on the other hand, if a player is focused on just upgrading their buildings, that's a one-time investment. It's not a constant payout like the followers, where you have to pay garrison resources constantly to send them out on missions. So for a player who's just focused on upgrading their buildings and doesn't really care much about the follower metagame, they can have a ton of leftover garrison resources, more than they know what to do with. So I think it's mostly a gameplay style thing that's going on there. It's like everything else in the garrison, like the plots and all that. It's a decision about what you're going to do with your resources, how you're going to use them, and you have to make some serious choices about what you're going to do.
And Evan, have you been having a similar experience, or has your gameplay allowed you to be a little bit more, bear a little bit more fruit with your resources?
Oh, no, I've been starved for resources. Mean resources have had a tough relationship so far. I was actually kind of blindsided by the sudden lack of resources after I hit level 100 and was trying to get to my level 3 garrison there. That's a big expenditure, 3,000. I never had that much since then, that's for sure.
I believe it's only 2.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
it seemed like 10,000.
It's 2,000 resources and 5,000 gold.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, still 2,000, 3,000. Well, I think they give you a bunch of resources right at the beginning as you're kind of learning. They kind of give you enough cash to throw around and get your feet wet and build a few buildings and not feel too constrained by it. Quest rewards are pretty generous. And then after you're done with all the quests and after you've leveled up and gone through all the zones and killed a bunch of rare spawns and found a bunch of treasure, then you have to start earning it through your garrison pretty much itself. I think the only consistent stream of resources after you've picked out all the static, always available resources like the quests is your trading post and your lumber mill and your missions, if I'm not wrong. Now they added the daily heroic, the random heroic, and that's a little bit better, but still people are trying to strategize on how to create the income now that the freebie resources are gone. And hopefully we'll get into that discussion a little bit because I found a couple tips that I might be able to give our listeners today.
My personal experience, I have 3 separate experiences. I have a very good friend of mine, my own, and then my other half. And what I found is that if you want to be I have tons and tons of resources all the time, you have to be lucky. And I'll explain that in just a moment. Me and my friend, though, I built the lumber mill because I was like, I'll probably need more resources. He built the inn first on his medium plot because he wanted all the cool stuff you get from the inn, the toys and all that kind of different stuff. Well, he had essentially 0 resources all the time ever, and I had enough. But, like Florian, I would wake up in the morning, and before I went to work, I would send all my followers out on missions. And I would take my laptop with me to work, and then on my lunch break, I would jump on WoW real quick, and any followers that were done on missions, I would send them on missions again, immediately get on it right after work to do the missions again, and then do them again later that night. And a good number of the missions cost anywhere from 10 to 30 resources. That devoured my resources. I thought I was doing great, because I'm sitting on I never was out of resources, I was slowly growing them up. And then it was like, you need 2,000 for tier 3 and a level 3 garrison, and 1,200 for a level 3 barracks, and 900 for this, and 900 for that. And I was like, I don't got any of that. I got like 700. My friend has none, so I'm still doing better than him. But at the same time, I do not have enough, and I thought I was doing this the smart way. And then my other half is sitting behind me, and she goes, I don't know what your problem is. I got 4,000 resources right now.
Jeez, like my guild mate.
And I found out what it was, and it's purely because she got really lucky. Her very first No. Her very first follower, for Alliance, you get the Druid Night Elf lady, Kiana.
Mm-hmm.
Her very first follower had Scavenger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she immediately after that got another follower Scavenger. So she was like level 92 with 2 Scavengers. And so she was just like rolling in the resources. Incidentally, when you're starting out, if you don't get someone with Scavenger, which that is purely luck based, if you don't get one, there is no way to like re-roll them right out the gate. You can't, reload your save and try again. Although there's been many times that I've thought, I wish I could do that with this, of just, reload my save and get the re-random roll. Make sure you build either a lumber mill or a trading post so that you can trade stuff for resources, because that is your best way, sadly, to get them until you get a Scavenger. And Scavenger is a follower trait that gives you a 200% increase on resources that come from missions. So you send them on a mission that's going to give you 100 resources. If they succeed, you get 300.
Right, and if you have 2 scavengers on the same mission, it's multiplicative, so it's 8 times as much. Wait, no. Yeah, 4 times. And then 3 scavengers will be 8 times as much. Yeah, basically with all my digging, scavengers as followers is the best way to get fast garrison resources. I think the only thing that would be better than a scavenger is if you didn't play except once every 3 days and just loaded up on the trading post and the lumber mill and put in a whole lot of work orders and then just left your computer and came back 3 days later and collected everything. If you're the kind of person that likes to run lots of missions, then you need a scavenger. If you don't have a scavenger, you need a level 2 inn, and you need to headhunt a scavenger.
Right, and that was my next piece of advice to tell people, is that with a level 2 inn, once a week, you're able to go to the inn and say, I want a follower that has this. It can either be to have them counter something, so, minion swarms, danger zones, whatever, or they can have a trait. And you can request a scavenger, and they will give you 3 options of people, and they'll all have different things, but they'll all have scavenger. And there's a chance for them to be rare, uncommon, epic. It's all just chance-based, but whichever trait or prop, whatever the other thing is called, traits and abilities, they will have whichever one you choose. And this is a good way if you want, like, Epic Mount, which cuts time in half. So an 8-hour mission becomes a 4-hour mission and stuff like that. You can only choose one.
Yeah, again, Epic Mount's the kind of thing that if you like running lots of missions multiple times a day, is a better choice. But of course, people's playstyles are going to differ. Some people might want the thing that increases the success chance on long missions. People are going to work and only logging on once or twice a day.
Well, and like my other half, she played once a day. I mean, she didn't do the before work, during lunch, right after work, and then when I actually normally play. She would only do her missions when she would normally play, which was, in the evening after we got home from everything. So she would, if there were some short missions, the 30 to 1 hour ones, those ones could roll over while she was playing. But otherwise, it was like, oh, you're gone for 2 hours. I'll see you in 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And Florian, that was the problem you were having, right? Just spending too much resources on missions?
Exactly. It's really, really hard to stay afloat on resources when you've got followers just going out all the time. But then I've tried not to do that because I had to save up a little bit to try to get some of my garrison stuff upgraded. And it's very, very painful watching that mission list fill up, especially once you get the lucrative missions that give you really good follower upgrades or those abrogator stones for the legendary ring quest, and just saying, no, I have to let this sit for a little while so I can upgrade my gem boutique to level 2.
Well, and go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that when I was just a couple hundred resources shy of getting a specific upgrade, for example, recently I wanted to upgrade the barracks to level 3 so I can get more people on the roster. I feel like that's going to help me reach some of my goals. Actually, I'm not sure. It might just help me waste more resources putting more people out on missions, but I figured the more progress, the more missions I could run, the more upgrades I can get. So I went for the barracks level 3, but grinding out the last couple hundred barracks resources, or garrison resources rather, the treasure maps you can buy, Moor Spear or Shield Wall.
Storm Shield.
Really helped in going on treasure hunts. It actually is really fun. If you don't know, once you complete all the main storyline quests for a zone, as it shows on your mini-map quest log, you can go to the Arakoa that trades for archaeology relic boxes in your capital, and he will give you a map of the zone where you've completed Nagrand, Spires of Eric, which will reveal all the treasure boxes on the map that you haven't gotten yet. You can always do this with an application or an add-on called Handy Notes as well, but I don't like running add-ons if I don't absolutely have to. But what happened was I was able to pick up some boxes. A lot of them do contain garrison resources, especially in Gorgrond.
Right.
And I also catch a few rare spawns that I didn't pass the first time around, and they give 10 to 20 to 30 garrison resources per kill too.
The first time you kill them, that's the important thing to note. The first time you kill a rare spawn, you'll get some resources from them. Right. And the treasure chests are great, but I really only recommend going after the ones in Gorgrond. I got every single one that was in Shadowmoon Valley, and this might just be a thing about Shadowmoon Valley, but Shadowmoon Valley, I got every single one, and I walked away with like 112 resources total after opening like 50 boxes. My bags were full of toys and pets and stuff.
Exactly. Well, those are fun too, but I'm going to say 115 resources after an hour or two of farming is like 8 times the speed at which your lumber mill is generating those resources at level 2.
It's true, but compared to Gorgrond, in which I did every single one of them and I walked out with like 400.
Yeah, Gorgrond is crazy because of the Shredder or the Ogre friend bodyguard that you get. I think maybe a quarter or a third or maybe even half of the treasure boxes there contain garrison resources behind a bramble patch or a big stone, you know?
I would definitely say it's at least half.
At least half. That's a little bit strong assumption there. I'm not sure. Mostly in the northwest, it kind of slows down a little bit.
It's just the way it felt for me, because I went from Shadowmoon to Gorgrond, and I went from opening maybe 3 boxes with resources to feeling like all of them had resources in them.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I think that was a pretty good decision there. And I'm not entirely sure. I think if you're in these separate zones, Gorgrond, for example, and you build the lumber mill to the exclusion of the Brawlers Arena, I think it's called, you can switch those plots for a modest fee, 5,000 gold, I'm thinking.
I was told it was 10,000. I didn't find the dude that allowed you to switch it.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
All I know is either way, whichever one it was a lot, and I was like, well, I guess I'm keeping this one then.
So if you are wealthy in gold and poor in garrison resources, you might look into doing a little bit of research to see whether or not it's possible to switch the war mill for the Brawlers Arena and go back and grab all the other garrison resources you didn't have access to the first time around.
Another thing that I don't know about, but I am curious on if anyone is able to answer, because specifically with it does affect in other places too, but very strongly with the Gorgrond outpost, there are, I think it's roughly 3 followers that are associated with which one you choose. Because the other zones, from what I could tell, only have 1 that's associated with your choice. Gorgrond has 3 that come to mind that are associated with which one you choose. And I would like to know if you can get them switch it and get the other ones because I want all of them. Even though...
Well, I know there's a follower that's available through the trading post, Inspires of Eric, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, big awesome robot dude that looks like the Ericoa's robot things.
Right.
He costs like 150 gold. He's awesome.
Yeah. I didn't have access to anything like that when I built the inn, so I'm thinking that I'd have to switch plots in order to get that follower if I wanted to be a completionist about the whole thing. So I'm pretty sure you would be able to grab the missing followers if you switch your plot. However, Gorgoron, like you're asking about, I think the followers are quest-based. They aren't outpost-based, if I'm not mistaken, although I could be naive. I could be mistaken.
Some of them are definitely quest-based, but I want to know if I switch the thing, do I get the new quests? I don't know. I mean, I know that if you switch factions, all of your zones completely reset.
Interesting.
So,
I think there's probably a lot to be discovered there as far as switching factions in the Warlords of Draenor, because a lot of people, we're getting off topic a little bit, switched factions with the War Mill tabard on, and the tabard did not switch, so you have some alliance characters with Horde tabards and the vice versa as well.
Right. But if you're not hurting for resources, congratulations, you're doing something right. If you are hurting for resources and you haven't built a lumber mill yet, I know it sucks because it's only 20 every 4 hours, but it's more than you're probably getting now. Otherwise, scrounge through your followers, see if any of them got scavenger. Otherwise, if you do have the inn, request a scavenger. They come at level 90, doesn't matter. Just grab them. It'll be worth it. Just do it. I mean, I was hurting for resources. I had to scrape to get up to the 2,000 to get the level 3 garrison, and then I had to scrape some more to build the inn and get it to level 2. And then now I'm just like, oh, I got one scavenger. And she's going to go do a 30-minute mission that gives me 30 resources. Well, she's actually going to bring back... She's actually going to bring back 90, so it really helps.
My 2 pieces of advice for resources is plan your garrison so you're not switching buildings around. That was my mistake. I think I rebuilt 3 or 4 of them as I was leveling up, just because the expansion just released. I didn't have information about what the capabilities were. I think there's more information out there now, better information. So it takes, it's worth it to save a couple hundred resources to have it planned out so you don't have to do too much swaps. Secondly, if you're getting starved and you're starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel there and you're logging in every hour to pick up the 5 resources from outside your town hall, maybe it's time to level up an alt, and get the dual income stream coming up. Just log off your main character for a while, and it won't seem so agonizing while you're waiting for these work orders.
Give your main a break, and it will generate some over time. But garrisons aren't meant to be a thing that you do nonstop.
I don't think so. That's something different about this expansion we got used to.
It's literally a Facebook game. It is literally a big, beautiful 3D Facebook game that I enjoy way too much. But, and maybe out of my plea from last week, we did get a piece of mail. It's only one, but I'm still excited. So we'll go ahead and move into the mailbag. We have one piece of mail. It is extremely long for podcasting terms, so I'll be shortening down a little bit. It comes from us from Mafix of Kel'Thuzad and Crisis of Skullcrusher. I want to preface this by saying that I am enjoying your podcast. I currently work 2 jobs, one during the day and the other in a graveyard shift. I'm sorry. I don't have time or money to buy or play WoW, and during my night job, I like to listen to various WoW podcasts while I'm working, learn about what I'm missing out on. And I really appreciated your recent episode, in a particular manner, about the professions. It really interested me, especially the pseudo-economist outlook on them. I've been a long-time player of WoW, and that's one of the things I enjoyed while playing the game, is watching the professions and their impact on the market. He also goes in to talk about how he's done a lot of work, just reviewing the economy as a whole and the way that especially the Blizzard economy works. Because Blizzard's economy has actually, it's a real thing. Blizzard's economy is a very actual thing that they do actually look at when they're creating the game. He goes on to say that he feels that Blizzard changed the interactions with professions for a couple of reasons. One is to increase the community feel between players, because things like cross realms and being able to invite people to other things and stuff like that really just made it where you're able to have your own little huddle instead of, really working with the people that are on your server. Another reason is that to deter botters. And this is a very good point of that with everyone having basic mats and resources available to them, they're not able to just literally have a bot run the program to run them through a dungeon so that they can collect up all the ore or whatever and then sell that for a really insane profit when they didn't have to do anything for it. And also all the time gating with work orders and stuff, and especially with all of the big things like Hexweave Cloth, True Steel Bars, all of that being soulbound, they can't just make those big expensive items and sell them easily. So there's this big time gate, both for us as players, but also for the botters. Anyway, I hope this makes sense and I haven't been rambling too much. I wanted to thank you for hosting the podcast, and I appreciate the depth of detail that goes into it. I'd like to see more of this particular topic in the future. I know there can only be so much of it, but I think it'd be awesome to hear. Thanks again. Woo! No! Anyway, what do you guys think of his points?
Well, I'll let Florian speak first if he's got a thought.
I have a few thoughts. The first thing is he mentioned that one of the reasons for the garrison resources being the way they are could be to deter botters. And I honestly hadn't thought about that before, and it does make a lot of sense. If everyone has a reasonable amount of ore, a reasonable amount of herbs, then it's going to reduce the price on those, and botters will become much less profitable. Same thing for the gold farmers. However, the problem is that this also kind of messes things up for players. And I don't think Blizzard intended it. At least for me as a miner / herbalist, ore is pretty much worthless at this point. And it has destroyed one of my primary methods of gaining gold when I need to get it. And a lot of other miners are feeling the same pain. And I don't think it was intentional on Blizzard's part, because there has already, I'm not sure if this has actually taken place, but there are a number of people who have said that it seems to them that their mines are giving less ore, and that maybe there was a stealth nerf to the mines. I feel like I'm getting less ore, but I'm not sure about that.
It wasn't stealth at all. Blizzard openly said they were reworking the mine because it was giving too much ore.
That's correct.
Huh.
Yeah,
well,
straight up blue post, Twitter post, everything. They're like, yep, we changed it because it was giving way too much ore.
Well, that's
nice
great.
observation skills there.
Case, yeah. In that case, that is perfect. That's going to help the ore market somewhat. The thing about the community feel, though, I definitely agree with that. It's going to lead to a lot more trading between players. Now that people who are, say, an alchemist might have a need for ore suddenly, or a jewel crafter might need herbs to make something. I like this new interdependency between gathering professions and crafting professions that haven't historically needed those gathering professions. So I think that's going to help the economy as a whole in the long run. It's just going to take a while for people to get used to, because it's basically turned the entire system on its head.
Well, there's one thing that I've noticed, and enchanters are complaining because there weren't any greens to be made to be disenchanted for materials, and Blizzard tried to address that. The thing that I've noticed is because I have an alchemist, and we're not actually able to make that much. We're able to make a whole bunch of really little doodaddy potions, like water walking elixirs and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, our only actual thing we can make is flasks, and our item that we get to make is a Philosopher's Stone. I don't have a single transmute. I mean, I can use it for the old ones, but I don't have any for currently, at least. And it feels weird. And especially, the thing that I noticed immediately with this is the two potions, the two greater flasks that I'm making currently, are greater intelligence and greater strength. Both of which need sorceress fires. And I've looked, and a whole bunch of stuff needs sorceress fires. And I'm out. But I have tons of sorceress airs, and normally in the past, I'd be able to transmute them once a day from air to fire or what have you. And I'm not able to do that now, and I think their intent is for me to trade airs for fires or whatever, but with the way the market is, I mean, fires are worth like 100 gold, and airs are worth like 10.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that's going to eventually balance out, because I think certain professions give more of the certain volatiles. It's not called volatile anymore, is it? It's called sorcerers. Yeah, so every time I open up my, for example, blacksmithing work orders, I think I have more fires and earths, and my inscription work orders have more air and water. I'm making that up, but just as a for instance, I think certain professions tend towards producing the certain volatiles. I'm saying it again. Anyway, I think this happens quite often. Every time we have like a primal element or a sorceress element or a volatile element or a mote of this or that, the ones that are more available get driven down in price, and it isn't just a one-to-one thing. You can't just trade your earth for fire, depending on what you need and what the other person has. I think they're all going to get onto the auction house. Supply and demand economics are going to drive it up and down, and I think your earths are going to be 5 gold, and I think your fires are going to be 105 gold. And that's just going to be it. I think what we do have the ability to do now that we didn't have the ability to do in the past is build that garrison building that helps you get a little bit more fire if you need it for alchemy. I mean, build a foundry or whatever it's called, blacksmithing hut. You generate those true steel iron ingots, and maybe even make some bind and equip blacksmithing gear and sell that in the auction house, even though you play a shaman or whatever, a warlock, you know.
I understand. And like normally I would just be able to transmute them, which is the original basis for my comment. And like I understand I could build a forge to get the fires, but I also know that it takes a lot of those true steel bars to make the epics, and I'd rather the ore and stuff that's going to those true steel bars go to my blacksmith that can make them faster. And I don't know, because I don't have any of the buildings that make epic items, because I have only had, like right now I have the storehouse, the salvage yard, and the alchemy lab, but I did have the inscription thing, but you couldn't make you couldn't make the epic ones. You could make the cards, which could turn into the trinkets, but I don't know if the basic buildings can make the 640 epics. I just don't know.
Oh, actually, do you know the answer to that, Florian?
Yes, the crafting buildings can make 640 epics. However, you have to upgrade them to level 3, and crafting a 640 epic is horrendously expensive. I've had my gem boutique going non-stop since I built the thing, which was like the week of release, and I still don't have, I think I have slightly over half the number of gems I need to create a 640 epic ring or neck piece. So by the time I finally crafted this thing, it will have been made completely obsolete by Highmaul raid gear.
Which, if you were a jewel crafter, you would have already made it. Like, it's that large of a difference. You get 10 of those per day instead of, 4 from your work orders?
Well, I think it's 4 a day from work orders, but if you have a level 100 follower working in that building, you get double production from all of your work orders. So that's another way to do that. You can do that, double production, and then have your main profession on top of that. I think the main thing it's intended for, though, in the long run, is to help you gear up and level alts, because all of these 640 epics are equipable at level 91. So I think it's intended to be something for long term that you can use to gear up alts and have them level through Draenor very quickly at ridiculous item levels.
Maybe. I mean, we are still only 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks into the expansion, so I mean, even though a lot of us have already hit the I'm ready to raid mark, you know, I've done everything, however you want to look at it, we still got a long ways to go before we see how these buildings and stuff are going to affect us and if they'll be useful or not come 6 months, come 8 months, towards, you know, when we're getting near the final tier / end of the expansion. So we'll just have to see how it goes. But for now, we have a review for you. this week for review, we're going to do the 5-man dungeon from Warlords of Draenor that got remade, and that is Upper Blackrock Spires. Now, my first question to you guys before we do anything else. Ubbers or Ubers?
Oh, UBRS.
Florian?
Yeah, I would also go with just UBRS. I've never tried to turn it into a word.
Alright, fine. I'm going with Ubers, because I like the word Uber. I don't care if it's pronounced wrong, I just like the word Uber. But
That's your
anyway,
prerogative.
for those of you who don't know how this works, we do a review section every week. It can be a dungeon, it can be a raid, it can be a quest line, it can be a zone, whatever we decide it to be. Maybe we can even do a class or something at some point. And we split it into 3 different sections. Ambiance, which is the design, the look of it, the music, the feel, all that kind of different stuff, the taste. Gameplay, which is, the trash, the numbers, the boss, the mechanics, all of that different stuff. And then the lore. Most dungeons, for the most part, have some sort of tie to lore in some way or another. And it is technically a part of the dungeon. If you do not enjoy lore, I'm sorry. We all like it to some degree or another. Some of us a lot, some of us just like it. And so it is technically part of what makes a dungeon what it is. Ice Crown Citadel might not have been as awesome if it didn't have Arthas and just had Joe Schmo, bad guy number 32 in it. So we will start with ambiance. This is a remade dungeon. Did it feel like one, guys?
Absolutely. I think they did a really good job kind of changing the feel and changing the occupants. They've maintained a whole lot of the same, atmosphere there. I mean, it's hard to change the atmosphere when you don't change any of the textures of the map. But the different inhabitants really give it a different kind of mood, and I feel like I'm in a different place, I don't feel like it's a rehash, so to speak. Plus, I want to also put out that it's been so long, years and years since the dungeon's been relevant that I feel like I barely even know the place anymore.
Florian, would you agree?
I'd agree on that. When I went in, it was the first time in many, many years that I have stepped into UBRS. And, I could remember some things, and some things were familiar to me, like that pit where you fight the third boss. But for the most part, it feels new, partly because it's so old and people just don't do it a lot anymore these days, which kind of helped in the sense with making it a good candidate to be remade. I feel in general they did a good job with it. It still feels like UBRS. It still looks like UBRS. It's pretty much UBRS with updated lore and updated gameplay. It's pretty much what it boils down to.
Now, what's inside UBRS is the Dragon Maw clan, which is the people that helped Garrosh escape and why Warlords of Draenor exists as a whole. Now, other people help too, not as important. This is just who these people are. Now, I just got done leveling a whole bunch of alts because that's what I decided to do at the end of the expansion. So for me, it didn't feel that different because I just got done doing it a whole bunch of times, especially because those are right at the end before I was able to boost characters. So that dungeon got done a lot for me. It did, though. The textures in there hold up well because they are basic textures. It's like they're the old stone textures. And basic stone textures, it's really hard to make a rock look old because a rock is just a rock. I did like it though. I mean, for what it was, I mean, there's definitely been worse dungeon remakes. I won't go into which ones I don't enjoy. But it does look good. It feels good. It definitely gave it just this real big, powerful feeling. It was good. The music was a little bit thundery for me. It wasn't quite the epic battle tone because it was, you're inside this mountain, so it was weaker than what I would have liked while trying to be over the top.
Right.
But all in all, though, I would probably give the ambience a C+ for me. I'll give it a B-.
I'll give it a solid B. I mean, I like it a whole lot. Actually, I don't know. That even seems like an unfair grade. I think they did a great job. I just think that maybe, they limited themselves by using the same by not reimagining the textures on the map. I mean, they punched a hole in the wall in the last room right beside where General Dracosath used to be, and then you went out to the suspended from change arena fighting Zayla.
Which, incidentally, I haven't went and looked. Is that arena...
Exactly. It's inside the actual mountain, and below the arena is the tomb of the ghost guy who used to give you the Shadowforge key. You're actually out in the non-instance area.
Right, and my question is, did they add that arena to the non-instance area?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. You'd have to go back and check it out. I would say no.
I would say no. Well, I'm going to have to go look. So I'll fly that way while we're talking.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, anyway, besides punching the hole and adding that second part of the map there, I think they did a really great job using the old map to convey the new feel of the place. So I'm going to say the ambience wasn't up to date, but the way they used the old map will, make me feel alright giving ambience an A.
Evan's a big A guy. He likes A's.
I like this expansion in general. I'd be surprised if I don't give everything an A in this expansion.
Well, we'll just have to do something not from this expansion come next week.
Maybe. We only have so many we can do before we have to start getting into the raids. Oh, man, the raids we have to do next week, right?
Well, we'll figure out what we're doing next week. We kind of fly by the seat of our pants on what we decide to do when. And we certainly aren't short on things to review. In 5-man dungeons alone, I think we have enough to literally do a year's worth. We're not going to do that. And for anyone who's like, oh man, a year of 5-man dungeons, turn this off now. No, we won't. We will switch things up. It's just that we have tons and tons of stuff that we can review, new and old. There's piles and piles of it, so I'm not concerned about running out. Florian, what's your final grade for the ambience of the place?
I'd say it's a solid B. It still conveys the same feel that it originally did, and it feels with the better layout and better layout of mobs the way it is now, and of bosses. I think it feels pretty good, and the new arena where you fight the final boss is just awesome. So I think in general the ambience is really good. It conveys the classic UBRS feel while giving us a little something new and interesting that we haven't seen before. That's
fair. And so that gives ambiance all over a flat B. And then we're going to move into gameplay. I was personally, my very first thing that I would like to say is that my character I went to Warlords with was a priest. I've only healed on this priest for the longest time. I switched to Shadow. And Shadow Priests are bloody terrible at AoE. They're just trash, and for Shadow Priests is just the worst. So bad. Small little comment there. If you're a Shadow Priest, I'm sorry. I am one too, and I feel like we're terrible at trash. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but I was able to be top DPS on every single boss, and was getting doubled over on DPS on trash. I've multi-dotted, I've done different things, and I'm still terrible at trash. So, there's that for me. The gameplay though, oh, incidentally, the arena is there outside of the dungeon. And I can land on it, I can fly on it, and I can walk up here. So the arena from the punched out hole in the wall, it is in fact there. They did add it on the outside. So good job, Blizzard, on making sure things are there. My first opinion on gameplay though, I thought the gameplay was great. So far, I've been very impressed with the dungeon play alone in general. Bosses feel very, very real, I guess. I mean, for the longest time, I feel like we've just been crashing through bosses like they don't exist. They don't live more than like 2 minutes, but that's more than the 15 seconds that they lived in previous times.
Right.
And go ahead.
Compared to the other heroic dungeons, even not even comparing it to prior content, compared to the other heroics, I mean, these bosses are kicking asses of our pug groups more consistently than the other ones, I think. I think these are some of the hardest hitting bosses in the expansion so far.
Yeah, they hurt fire bad.
We have the first boss where I don't even think anybody's come up with a great strategy that's really gone viral, so to speak. You know how a lot of strategies in these dungeons go viral. and everybody seems to know them by the middle of the expansion.
You just do it this way, and that's the easiest way to beat him, and then he doesn't matter anymore.
I'm trying to think of a good example of one of these things, but at risk of losing my train of thought, the first boss, I don't think anybody's demonstrated that they really know how to get off that platform and open up those cages without dying or without really coming close to dying. I mean, on my DK, I'm just hopping down, letting the DPS stay up top, popping the anti-magic shell and doing as many as I can, speed boost, running around in there. And that's the best I could do, just have the tank do it. But the fact you have to think about it, the second boss with the poison pools, everybody's getting messed up with the poison pools. The third boss, he's throwing axes, spinning around, get a fire-breathing dragon thing, other dragon things coming down, ads joining the fight right when the healer's starting to get a little bit exhausted from the pace. Jeez, I mean, it's tough. The fourth boss, the fifth boss, fire-breathing everywhere, man, it sucks. I mean, you really got to pay attention.
A lot.
It does hurt. It can take you down in a couple ticks. I mean, it's not a joke.
Yeah, it will mess up your face. Florian, how did you feel about it?
Did the bosses in general have really good mechanics? I had lots of fun playing them. And the first boss, like Evan said, it's really weird trying to figure out how to deal with his electric spinning thing he has going on outside of the immediate arena, the little platform he stands on, without taking a ton of AoE damage. I've tried a lot of things. I've tried jumping on top of the little cages to see if that could avoid damage, and it doesn't. And I'm not really sure how Blizzard wants us to approach that. But aside from that guy, most of the bosses are pretty straightforward. It seems to me that the main gimmick of this dungeon is lots and lots and lots of fire. It's AoE all over the place. And the fights are generally built around knowing where to stand, when to stand there, and when to just get out of the way. It seems to me like it's built as a basic tutorial for how not to stand in the fire. This is where you should stand. This is where you should not stand. You need to move out of the way when this happens or that happens. Especially the Ragewing fight, which is pretty much almost 100% AoE. There's just AoE all over the place, and I've seen a lot of heroic groups just burn to death because they can't move quickly enough. So I've seen
that fight. That's the dragon on the bridge, right?
Yeah.
That
Ragewing
fight is amazing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people stand near the entrance, especially ranged, and they get gimped when he starts at the ranged entrance and they have to run across the entire bridge. My piece of advice, stand with the tank in the middle of the bridge when you do that fight, because he'll either start at the right or start at the left, and you don't know. If you get caught on the wrong side of that fire breath, being in the middle gives you the best opportunity to run away.
And from what I've seen, that fire breath just kills you.
It really does a number.
I mean, I saw two DPS stand in it, and it didn't tick. They just died. I mean, it probably does an amount of damage. It's not an instant death effect, but with current gear and HP levels, from what I could see, it was just, you die.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. It's not very forgiving, at least at this gear level, and everybody knows how that starts. So maybe some of our newer listeners are joining the game, and they don't know how an expansion kind of ramps up. It starts off really tough. When everybody has barely enough gear, and then when you have a couple people who are kind of carrying you through the dungeon, the fights last shorter, the healers can keep you up faster, and then everybody has more HP, and it's a little bit easier. But these couple weeks are what people like me live for, the 5-man dungeon buffs.
If you are new to the game and you need the biggest piece of advice ever, don't stand in the fire. Don't stand in the bad. That is the most basic logic of Warcraft. It will take you farther than you probably realize if you can get very good at not standing in the bad. Because it's not always fire. Sometimes it's purpley zone. Sometimes it's badness. I say don't stand in the bad. If it looks bad, don't stand in it. And you will do very, very well in this game on almost every level. You can do raiding, and as long as you're able to get the concept of shoot my fireball thing at the boss and don't stand in the fireball he shoots, you will win.
Yep, and UBRS is going to be the workbook. The final exam is the last boss in Grimmail Depot. As far as standing in the bed.
I haven't done that one yet.
Ooh, yeah.
As I said, I've been really I've done tons and tons and tons of questing, and then lots of garrison work, and then, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway.
The final boss in this one, though, there's a lot of bad in this one.
A whole lot of bad.
Dragons flying up to the side, breathing fire in random areas, Sheeta's whirlwinds, the ads and stuff everywhere.
I love it.
It's great. I love it. I'm giving this one. I'm gonna give this one an A. It doesn't get the A+ from me, but it does get an A.
Yeah, I say this is got the mean bosses, mean mechanics, mean damage, and then mean trash. I think the trash is also really mean. I'm giving it an A. The only reason I'm not giving it an A+ is because it runs a little bit long. 5 bosses is a little bit long.
There's also, there's this delicate balance between a lot of trash and a little bit of trash, and there's a lot of trash in here.
Mm-hmm.
Florian, where are you at?
I'd give it an A2. The only things holding me back from the A+ are the first boss, who, whatever the technique for beating him skillfully is, it's not very apparent. So his mechanic is not very intuitive to figure out. And that and the large amount of trash are really the only things that I have any kind of problem with. Aside from that, it's a very solid gameplay dungeon. Nice and challenging, especially the way it should be.
Beautiful. A's across the board. Gameplay is a big fat A. And that brings us to our third section, which is lore. My first big question to lore, why didn't they take lower Blackrock Spire as well? I know they only, this is probably because, Blizzard only wanted to redo one of them or whatever, but why, lore-wise, would they not take both?
I'm pretty sure it's because they don't want to clear out the, I'm thinking, never mind. I want to say, they don't want to clear out the Dark Iron Dwarves, but that is, Blackrock Depths.
Right. There's some trolls and some ogres.
Because of what it costs us a raid tier.
But, and lore-wise, I think it's fantastic. I mean, they never explicitly said in the book War Crimes what Warlord Zayla did right after she helped break out Garrosh Hellscream. And to see her, Blackrock Mountain is the closest thing to Stormwind that you can possibly get threat-wise. In the game, you could just lob cannons at us from the top. In the world, you're maybe a day's march away total.
Just out of curiosity, have you played the Everbloom dungeon yet?
Yes.
That is literally the final boss of that is literally a 1-minute walk from Stormwind.
Yeah, he's in the backyard.
I would argue that one is the closest threat. But yeah, that is the thing about Blackrock Spire. It's a huge threat that for some reason Stormwind doesn't seem to want to deal with. And I'm not really sure what's going on there.
Well, technically, we go in and deal with it. We go in and we take everyone out because, we're awesome, and then, someone else will get credit for it later. But it's surprising, because the other thing about it is, though, small little thing off of what I was about to say. From talking to NPCs and stuff, we've eaten up a ton of time already in Draenor. You talk to a couple of people in Stormshield, and they're like, man, I can't wait to go home. We've already been here for months. I haven't got to see my wife and kid. And it's like, how much time has actually passed? That's the thing that's always hard to gauge, is how much time has passed. And I think we've been here a while, but the question that I have is because the game is positioned really well for the next expansion to be something bad happened while we were gone. Now, if we're supposed to be dedicating all this time to Draenor and our garrison and being the commander, general, whatever, it just feels completely awkward to me, lore-wise, every which way-wise, to just randomly be like, actually, I need to go back to Stormwind and deal with the mountain that I've been in 5 times now.
Yeah, timeline-wise, I'm not entirely sure. Let's see. we have the preview of UARS in the pre-launch event, right? And we go in there and kill up to what's his face, third boss in Ren's room, and then Warlord Zayla says, "I'm gonna go get the weapon ready." I guess she's thinking about the Iron Star, which I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you're gonna do with the Iron Star. I mean, do you guys have any insight into what the weapon is? Is it that Iron Star that's hanging above that platform?
Maybe it's
never
not
really
that
explained.
big though.
Yeah, I know. It's like, what are you gonna put it on the back of a dragon or something?
Apparently, there is some sort of large and dangerous weapon that she is keeping. According to the, I think the dungeon notes that you get in the instance, if you hover over her on the map, it says she has a doomsday weapon in the heart of Blackrock Mountain. But it's never clarified or explained what the doomsday weapon is, what the doomsday would be, what did we prevent? You know, should we maybe collect it and like give it to someone who can keep an eye on it?
Right.
I don't really know what's going on there. It's very strange.
I mean, when you have the loading screen for UBRS, it is featuring that end boss arena with the Iron Star hanging from the chains above, and she talks about a weapon. Iron Star is a weapon. They use it to kill Manaroth.
No. It's a volcano. The volcano itself is a weapon. Drop the Iron Star in the heart of a volcano, and if you need that volcano to blow with as close as it is to Stormwind and as close as it is to all the things important, I mean, that thing is a super volcano by all definitions. And in our actual history of Earth, super volcanoes are terrifying things. I mean, they have documentaries and stuff on what would happen if Yellowstone ever blew. I mean, it would be like mass extinction. So,
yeah,
I mean,
plus somebody stepped it out using the 40-yard range on his Frostbolt or something like that and found out that Azeroth, top to bottom, or Kalimdor rather, is only like, 250 miles or less?
Well, that is very, very inaccurate. Because that is gameplay to real life. Because, like, in, like, the first war, I think it was, Goldshire gets attacked and just completely smashed out. And in reality, I mean, in the game, Goldshire's a 10-second horseback ride. And even if you mapped that out, I mean, to, like, real size, based on his conversion or whatever, it would be all of, like, a 10-minute horseback ride. But in the descriptions for that fight, Goldshire is actually, like, what is it, like 6 hours, 12 hours away by horseback? And that's why the Stormwind army couldn't get there in time, because Goldshire wasn't a very large establishment, and they got attacked by the Horde and just got ransacked in a matter of a half hour, an hour. I mean, Goldshire technically has more than a blacksmith and an inn. So,
I mean, and that explains why they moved Goldshire so much closer to Stormwind after that disaster.
Right. But I still don't think it's a 10-second horseback ride.
Right. No, maybe you're right about that. So we'll suspend our disbelief there a little bit. Warlord Zayla is going to, I mean, it is positioned directly above the middle of that thing. The middle of the big cavernous, heart of the mountain, I guess, above the lava. Actually, I buy that. I think that's probably the most insightful opinion I've heard about the whole thing.
I don't know if that's true. That's just what my brain said.
That's just what my brain said. I mean, the only alternative, I guess, is to throw the Iron Star at Stormwind. And, I mean, I've seen a single Iron Star kill several noobs, but I don't think it could wipe out a whole city.
Not the one that's in there. It's not nearly big enough.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I mean, and the one that, they have the Iron Star cannon that's on the back of the ship in Talador outside Shattrath, and those seem bigger than the one that's in Blackrock, and all they were able to do was blow up another ship. So, it's hard to say. I mean, it's one of those things. Maybe it's actually a lot bigger because it is in the game. They only had so much room. But who knows how everything technically works. Because of a few inconsistencies with timelines and when we actually go there and all of this mumbo jumbo, I'm going to give Laura C-.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, it's Blackrock Spire, and there are no Blackrock orcs anymore. It's all the Dragonmaw clan. Like, I mean, I understand that Blackrocks used to be there, Actually, yeah, I don't know. I trust Blizzard. I think they're making good decisions with the lore. I really like the super volcano idea, so I'm gonna give lore B.
Oh, it gets extra points from my idea that's completely baseless. Awesome. I approve. Florian.
I'm going to give it. I'm going to say closer to a D, mostly because nothing is really explained about what's going on here. You know, like you said before, why don't they take lore Blackrock Spire? What are they doing here? What is their plan? What is their doomsday weapon? I mean, like, we've got some speculation about what it might be, but it could be something completely different. It almost seems to me like they just wrote that in as a plot point and then just forgot to follow up on it, which may well be what happened. Because when I saw the Iron Star, I did not think Doomsday Weapon. I thought, hey, cool, they got a nice Iron Star for decoration. That's very pretty. So, yeah, all in all, I'm going to give it a D because there's not much new lore here, and what is here is just more confusing than anything else.
So, fantastic gameplay, good ambience for being something that's been remade and a lot of stuff is reused. Lore, though, just comes up really short with way too many questions. A lot more questions than answers, which was the same problem with our first review in Auchindoun, is that there was just way more questions than answers. And hopefully, I would like to say Blizzard would follow up on this, but they're not always able to do that. There's lots of other questions from a lot longer ago that I would still like to see answered before I get this clarified out. That does bring the final score, though, to a B. That is fairly significant, especially considering there was a lot of us reaming it at times.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was grinding a bunch of characters through that to try to get that 550 gear when the pre-event or pre-launch event came out, and I was like, it seemed to drag when there were 3 bosses. I can't imagine 5 or 2 more on top of that. But what can I say? I mean, thinking about it, seeing the other 2 bosses, doing the Leroy Jenkins, which I can't believe we didn't talk about the Leroy Jenkins achievement. Maybe next time. I mean, it really just really won me over.
I haven't done it yet. I, in fact, can't do heroics yet because I have not been hardcore gearing to the wall. So, yeah, I completely forgot about the Leroy Jenkins achievement. It's not going to earn any bonus points from me. And we can always add that into a follower discussion at another date, though. But all in all, though, the dungeon is good. It gives you the best item level gear if you're not doing heroic. Obviously, all heroics are 630. It's got a lot of gear in it. You got a lot of good options. The bosses are fun if that's what you care about. Overall, B, go do it. Go enjoy it. It might wear on you after a little while. And that's the end of the show, everybody. Thank you for tuning in again or tuning in for the first time. You're always able to find our shows on iTunes and Twitter. Not Twitter. I posted on Twitter. I'll tell you that in a moment. I posted on iTunes and Stitcher. If there's another place that you'd like to see it posted, please let me know, and I'll see what I can do about getting it posted there. I did look into Blog Talk Radio. If you want to use outside sources, then you have to pay a very significant fee. So, no to Blog Talk Radio as of right now. If you would like to email us, give us some more mail, or give us some feedback, you can either give us an iTunes review, or you can send us an email at thecastbar@gmail.com. Send us a tweet at castbarpodcast, or you can call us and leave us a voicemail, which, if it's short enough and interesting, we can send it onto the show, which is 508-738-2278. The music for our bumpers is done by a gentleman named Kevin MacLeod. If anyone knows actually how this is pronounced, please let me know. You can find his work at incomtech.com. All of his stuff is royalty-free under the Creative Commons license, so give him credit and you can use it, or buy it and then you don't have to say his name and possibly butcher it like I am. Evan, where are people able to find you?
You can find me on Twitter at EDC Wow.
And Florian, where are people able to communicate with you at?
They won't find me. I will find them when they're ready.
Oh no.
That's a little spooky.
So is this how you're taking care of the Iron Horde? Just giving just drastically creepy one-liners and hoping that it makes them run away in fear?
It's worked so far.
He's an army guy, so yeah, you should definitely be
anything.
afraid. He's got rocket launchers and nukes and stuff. Iron Star and a volcano.
Yeah, And Florian still hasn't told us where his garrison is, and he just likes living in secrecy.
Anyway, guys, have a good night.
You are out of time.
Me not that kind of orc.